Addiction rarely starts with a conscious decision to self-destruct. More often, it begins with small, seemingly harmless experiences that quietly shape the brain's understanding of safety, relief, and belonging. Looking back at my own life, I can now see that addiction was not a sudden event, but a long process initiated by family environment, emotional needs, learned beliefs, and early experiences with substances and behaviors that altered how I related to stress and myself. I grew up with an alcoholic father. Alcohol was not an exception in our home, it was a constant presence. Drinking was normalized, minimized, and socially accepted. There were no clear boundaries around alcohol use, no conversations about emotional regulation, and no visible alternatives for coping with stress. As a child, I learned not through words but through observation. Alcohol was how adults relaxed, coped, and escaped. This silent lesson became part of my internal world long before I ever touched a drink myself. In broader society, alcohol reinforced this message. It was portrayed as a reward, a stress reliever, and a symbol of maturity. Seeing alcohol everywhere, at celebrations, family gatherings, and social events, made it feel safe and ordinary. In such an environment, my brain never categorized alcohol as a potential danger. Instead, it was filed under normal life. My first glass of wine came when I was 10 years old. What stands out is not the act itself, but the internal shift that followed. I was a fearful, anxious child, often hesitant and self-doubting. After drinking the wine, I felt different. The fear softened. I felt braver, more confident, more present. That experience planted a powerful association in my brain. Alcohol transformed fear into courage. This moment became one of the earliest initiators of addiction. My brain learned that an external substance could change my internal state quickly and effectively. Years later, when fear or anxiety returned, my nervous system remembered the solution. I did not consciously decide to rely on alcohol. My brain simply followed a pathway it had learned early on. As I entered adolescence, my self-esteem remained low. I struggled with feelings of inadequacy and insecurity. I constantly felt that I was not enough as I was. My first cigarette appeared during this phase. Smoking did not just calm me physically, it gave me an identity. Holding a cigarette made me feel more composed, more adult, more acceptable. Once again, a substance filled a gap I did not know how to address internally. Soon after came the desire to belong. Social acceptance felt essential, almost life-saving. When I smoked my first joint, it was not about rebellion or curiosity. It was about connection. Being high allowed me to relax in social settings, speak without overthinking, and feel included. The constant self-criticism faded into the background. Cannabis became another tool my brain associated with relief and belonging. At the same time, food began to serve a similar function. Whenever I felt dissatisfied, lonely, or overwhelmed, I ate, often far beyond physical hunger. Food grounded me. It distracted me from emotional discomfort and created a temporary sense of fullness and safety. Overeating was not a lack of discipline, it was an attempt at self-soothing. My brain was learning, again and again, that discomfort could be silenced externally. Beneath all of these behaviors was a deeper issue: a lack of felt love and safety. I internalized the belief that I was only valuable if I was hardworking, obedient, and productive. Rest felt undeserved. Pleasure felt suspicious. I believed that love had to be earned through effort and performance. These beliefs pushed me toward perfectionism. Perfectionism slowly transformed into workaholism. Working excessively gave me structure, identity, and a sense of worth. It distracted me from emotional emptiness and fear. Society rewarded this behavior, which made it difficult to recognize it as problematic. I was praised for being responsible and ambitious, even as I was using work to avoid myself. However, workaholism depends heavily on physical and mental energy. As I grew older, that energy began to decline. I could no longer sustain the same level of intensity. Something had to replace it. Gradually, workaholism shifted into computer addiction. Hours spent online felt productive, important, and purposeful, even when they were not. My brain convinced me that scrolling, researching, and consuming information was meaningful work. This illusion was not accidental. Dopamine, the brain's learning and motivation chemical, was being activated. Each new piece of information, each click, each novelty gave me a small reward. My nervous system interpreted this stimulation as engagement and purpose, even though it did not truly serve my life. The mechanism was the same as with substances. My brain was seeking regulation, relief, and a sense of value. The form changed, from alcohol to work to the internet, but the underlying need remained unchanged. I was not addicted to specific substances or behaviors. I was addicted to escaping discomfort and earning worth. What ties all these initiators together is not weakness, but learning. My brain learned early that internal distress could be managed externally. It learned that worth depended on performance. It learned that rest, emotion, and vulnerability were unsafe. Addiction, in this light, was not a failure, it was a strategy. Understanding the initiators of addiction has been crucial for my recovery. It allowed me to replace shame with curiosity and judgment with compassion. Healing did not mean simply removing substances or behaviors. It meant unlearning beliefs, building emotional skills, and teaching my nervous system new ways to feel safe and valuable. Addiction begins where connection, safety, and self-worth are missing. It grows where society normalizes avoidance and rewards overfunctioning. And it ends not with force, but with understanding. My story is not unique, but it is proof that addiction has roots, and that roots can be gently, patiently transformed.